Estuaries are really productive systems. They're places where the river meets the sea, so where saltwater and freshwater mix. And as a result, they create nursery habitat for a variety of different species, from Dungeness crab to rockfish. And we know that estuaries are also incredibly important for juvenile salmonids. The largest proportion of returning adults may be those that are raised in our estuaries. And so that connectivity from our upstream systems all the way into our estuaries and out to the ocean are super important for the persistence of anadromous species like our native salmonids. We're standing on the site of MidCoast's first restoration project under the Focused Investment Partnership here at the Starr Creek Preserve, which is owned by the Wetlands Conservancy on the Alsea estuary. The Estuary Focused Investment Partnership is an investment of $7 million over 6 years aimed at restoring and conserving sites on the Alsea and Uquinna estuaries. Funding comes from the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board and supports our diverse partnership in undertaking this work.
DWC acquired this property in 2008 with the goals of first preserving this important 122 acres right here on Alsea Bay, and then also, of course, with big goals of restoration to increase the ecological connectivity in the area here and reconnect this region to the tidal function that's happening out there in the bay. So kind of providing this tree to sea nutrients from the upper forest through this estuary into the bay.
Before this stretch of creek was altered, it was a complex network of tidal channels, native vegetation, and supported a diverse array of native fish and wildlife. This site was altered for agriculture, so a road was put in and tide gated. The creek was pushed up along one edge of the site, and this area was planted with grasses used for grazing. These alterations changed the hydrology of this area, making it less productive for our native fish and wildlife populations. We lost sort of the complexity of habitat, and with the road being put in here and the tide gate being in place, wood was no longer able to reach this site, and is one of the reasons why we focused so hard on getting large wood placed during this restoration project.
The reason why we put large wood in the streams and on the floodplain is to create complexity. Fish and wildlife species like to have a lot of habitat types, and so wood in the stream slows water velocities down, creates hiding places, it sorts sediment and materials, and then it also provides food source as it degrades and bugs fall into the water to feed the fish. So adult salmon come back in, they spawn and lay their eggs, and once those hatch, they typically drop down into these lower estuary, small tributaries to rear for a while. And so again, these are nursery grounds for a lot of small salmon, Chinook, coho, chum salmon that we have on the Oregon coast. When we put it on the floodplain, it creates roughness. So when floodwaters come in, the logs help capture sediment and materials. And then as they start to rot and decay, those logs act as nurse logs, which allows other shrub species and then trees such as spruce to get established to recreate the spruce bog swamps that was once a very dominant habitat type in the estuaries. 80 to 90% of that habitat type has been lost, and so we're trying to jumpstart that process again and get that habitat feature back.
MidCoast's salvage log program, funded by the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board, enabled us to salvage all of the large wood used on this site. From large pieces of logs to root wad logs, it really enabled us to get quality local wood out here to benefit our native fish and wildlife.
When we look at where we work with wetlands across the state, we're trying to focus in some regions where we know that wetlands will really help the climate be resilient, and the coast with sea level rise that's coming in is one of those. We know that more wetlands on the landscape is going to create a more climate resilient landscape, and the better that those wetlands are functioning, the healthier that they are, then the better wetland function they provide. So, you know, if the wetland has the right plants and has the right tidal influx and all of that, then it's going to function properly.
What's really cool is to see how the channel is continuing to flow, which is what we want, but also how some of the water is sort of spreading out onto the floodplain. That's one of the things that we're looking for, spreading that water out, slowing it down a little bit where it's going off channel slightly. Water's moving around the root wads, which is exactly what we were hoping for. And yeah, it's just really exciting to see the changes over time out here. Yeah. We want to offer big thanks to all of the partners and collaborators that make that project possible. And we also want to thank the landowner here, the Wetlands Conservancy, and surrounding neighbors who've been supportive of the project going forward.
There's a bunch of fish, whole bunch of little fish right there. Look at them all zipping along. That's fantastic. See that big pool of them there? A whole bunch of them. Wow. And that's just what they're supposed to do, go up these little channels. When the water's coming in, they're feeding, hiding, and just getting big and fat to head out later on. This is exactly what you want to see. Exciting. You know, the fun part about these kind of projects is to watch it develop over 5, 10 years and come back later and you know, you won't even recognize it, which is great.